Close your eyes for a second. Now, picture this. The biggest names in rap, studio lights dimmed, contracts unsigned, beats waiting in limbo, because one man just hit the pause button on everything. And that man is Drake. Welcome to the moment that could change hip-hop history forever. And no, this isn't your average beef update. This is the unraveling of what might be the worst move Drake's ever made. One that's been years in the making. A scandal hiding in plain sight. A power play that didn't just backfire, it might have detonated the entire structure he built his empire on. So tap like, smash subscribe, and hit that bell so hard it drops a feature. Because what you're about to hear is so wild, even Kendrick's Not Like Us sounds like a bedtime story next to this madness. Let's rewind the tape. We all remember the story of Adidon. That wasn't just a diss, it was a revelation. Pusha T didn't drop bars. He dropped a biography Drake didn't want anyone reading. He exposed a secret son, pulled back the curtain on the ghostwriting rumors, and cracked the smooth veneer that Drake had spent a decade polishing. It was surgical, it was personal, it was fatal. And when the dust settled, the world assumed Drake took the L, accepted it, and moved on. But behind the scenes, he was plotting. Fast forward to today, and we find out Drake's been pulling strings like a rap world puppeteer. Not with tracks, not with tours, but with tactics straight out of a Netflix villain's playbook. We're talking about industry blackouts, label interference, and behind-the-curtain censorship designed to muzzle one man, Pusha T. And who cracked this story wide open? Steven Victor, Pusha's longtime manager. In a quiet, matter-of-fact interview with Billboard, he dropped a bombshell that exploded across the culture. Drake wasn't just upset about Adidon. He didn't want revenge on wax. He wanted revenge in contracts, in silence. And that takes us straight to Pop Smoke. Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon was more than just an album. It was a monument. Pop was gone, but his sound lived on. Raw, electric, fearless. And on that album, there was a track called Paranoia. Pusha T had a feature on it, a verse. A moment it was in the bag. Until it wasn't. Because Drake found out. And the second he did, the gears of the music machine started grinding in reverse. Universal, Republic, all the suits in the room pulled an emergency brake. Word on the inside? If Push stayed on the track, the album might not drop at all. Think about that. Drake's personal beef almost buried one of the biggest posthumous albums of the decade. A man's legacy, a movement's momentum. All of it nearly derailed because of one fragile ego. This wasn't beef. This was ego terrorism. This was Drake leveraging corporate pull to delete art from history. And here's where it gets really dark. This wasn't an isolated incident. Let's zoom out. Drake's been dissing Push in tracks like it's his cardio. Remember Jack Harlow's Churchill Downs? Smooth flow, polished bars, and somewhere in there, a subtle shot at Pusha. Then came Travis Scott's Meltdown, where Drake doubled down, taking aim not just at Push, but at Pharrell too, like he was trying to wipe out the entire Virginia coast. But here's the twist. Drake could fire those shots because he knew Pusha couldn't shoot back. Because he made sure the gates were closed. Push wasn't just being ignored. He was being erased. Blackballed by red tape. Silenced by backdoor deals. Smothered under non-disclosure agreements, fear, and billion-dollar brand partnerships. This isn't rap beef. This is corporate warfare dressed in a tracksuit. Let that sink in. We're not talking about studio battles anymore. We're talking about a rapper with enough power to get verses pulled, features scrapped, and entire projects halted, all because of a grudge. Let's talk about Maybach Music 6. Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, and Pusha T on the same track? A dream scenario. Until Drake found out. And just like that, Pusha was off the song. Gone. Deleted from the record like he never existed. Why? Because Drake didn't want to share airspace with a man who sunned him in front of the entire culture. It's petty. It's insecure. It's downright un-hip-hop. Because when you start controlling who gets to speak, who gets to be heard, who gets to drop what, then you're not a rapper anymore. You're a gatekeeper, a censor, a brand in sweatpants pretending to be a lyricist. And while Drake was out here swinging in every direction, knowing the other guy had a hand tied behind his back, he thought nobody would notice. But we noticed. And it gets worse. You know how much Pusha had to pay to escape that grip? 7 figures? Yes, 7 figures. Just to leave the major label system and go independent. Just to breathe. Just to make music without a billion-dollar umbrella trying to edit every line. This isn't just about one rapper anymore. This is about a system built to protect Drake, and only Drake, at the cost of everyone else's freedom to express. Push's new album rollout isn't just a return to form, it's a jailbreak. And rappers across the industry, they're watching, they're talking. The whispers are turning into roars. The fear is melting into fuel. Because Kendrick lit the fire, but Push brought the dynamite. Let's talk about Kendrick. Not Like Us wasn't just a diss track. It was a cultural shift. It was a festival crowd surfing on pure adrenaline. It was grandmas asking what an OVO owl really meant. That track dropped like a meteor. But imagine if it hadn't. Imagine if Kendrick had been tied to a label that folded every time Drake felt uncomfortable. Imagine if the song got pulled before it hit Spotify. Imagine if Not Like Us never made it out of the studio. That's what almost happened to Pusha. And that's why this moment is different. Drake's usual tricks didn't work this time. No lawyer phone call, no quiet studio block, no strategic silence disguised as strategy. Kendrick dropped the gloves, came out swinging, and every punch connected. Why? Because the labels couldn't stop him. Drake couldn't stop him. And now, the castle Drake built out of NDAs, fear, and soft disses? It's crumbling. The man who once seemed invincible is suddenly vulnerable. Not because he got out-rapped, but because he got outmaneuvered, outflanked, outed. And now, the narrative has flipped. This isn't Drake versus Push. It's not even Drake versus Kendrick. This is Drake versus the idea of freedom in hip-hop. Because now we know, Drake wasn't just playing chess. He was rearranging the board after every move. Quietly, privately, brutally. We're talking about an artist who allegedly stopped other artists from releasing their own truth. What's next? Telling DJs what not to play at cookouts? The industry backed him because he was the cash cow, Billboard king, streaming god. But when you treat art like a business spreadsheet long enough, eventually the artists rebel. And Kendrick? Pusha? They're not just rapping anymore. They're leading a mutiny. Let's look at the timeline. Ever notice how the energy in hip-hop shifted in the past few years? How everything started sounding like the same playlist, on loop, in a Spotify algorithm blender? Why did the genre feel so stale? Why did innovation feel like it hit a wall? Here's why. Because the person with the loudest mic also had the power to unplug everyone else's. Drake became the very industry puppet he used to throw shade at. You remember when he hinted Kendrick was controlled by big suits? Projection? Much? Turns out, Drake wasn't the disruptor. He was the algorithm. And once Kendrick came back with venom in his voice and freedom in his pen, the system broke. But the real question is, how deep does this go? Stephen Victor said Push's music was being blocked. That's confirmed. But how many other artists got ghosted by the industry because Drake didn't vibe with a verse? Let's play the what-if game. What if other iconic albums were changed behind the scenes? What if newcomers got shelved because they referenced the wrong artist? What if that mixtape you were waiting on never dropped? Not because it wasn't ready, but because someone in an OVO hoodie whispered, nah? The truth is, we might never know the full body count. But now that the light is on, every suspicious album delay suddenly looks suspicious for a reason. So where are we now? Push is free. Kendrick is king. The Clipse album is on the horizon. And Drake? He's not just taking L's in the booth. He's bleeding credibility in the boardroom. His image has gone from the certified lover boy to the certified blocker boy. And it's not even just fans noticing. The whispers are louder now. Artists are talking. Producers are choosing sides. Executives are sweating. Drake's empire was built on charm and consistency. But it might fall because of control and cowardice. And let's be real for a second. The fact that Pusha had to pay out of pocket millions to buy back his freedom? That's wild. Imagine having to ransom your own voice. And yet, he did it. Not just for himself, but for the culture. And when he returns, he's not coming with sneak disses or subliminals. He's coming with receipts. Because when a man pays 7 figures for a verse, you better believe that verse is going to hit different. Meanwhile, Kendrick's success post-diss isn't just a win, it's a blueprint. He showed that the only way to fight power is to go straight through it. No labels, no blockers, just bars. And Drake? He didn't have a response. Not a real one, just memes, just IG captions, just silence, wrapped in silk and served cold. Because when a man runs out of excuses, all he has left is marketing. And hip-hop doesn't respect PR. And now the question on everyone's mind isn't who's next. It's who's been blocked. Who had a verse buried? Who had an album delayed? Who else got clipped from the Pop Smoke album? From Ross's record? From playlists, collabs, award shows? The iceberg's tip has cracked, and below it might be a history of control that rewrites how we see the last decade of rap. Drake wasn't just avoiding beef, he was sterilizing the genre, keeping it pretty, predictable, profitable, and that's the most anti-hip-hop move of all time. Let's not forget, hip-hop was born out of resistance, out of rebellion, out of not being heard, and making damn sure the world listened anyway. And now here we are, in an era where one of the biggest rappers alive was allegedly working overtime to make sure certain voices stayed unheard. Not because of criminal charges, not because of legal rights, but because he didn't like what they were saying. That's not just weak, that's dangerous. Drake wasn't using his platform to elevate the game. He was using it to gatekeep. It's like finding out the referee's been betting on the game the whole time. And here's the twist. Drake might have gotten away with it all if Kendrick hadn't nuked the chessboard. One diss track, a handful of performances, and a red glowing GNX later, and now the whole machine is glitching. Because Kendrick didn't just beat him lyrically, he destroyed the illusion of control. And if there's one thing billion-dollar industries hate more than anything, it's losing control. Let's go deeper into that Clipse rollout. Pusha T stepping back into the arena isn't just about bars, it's about balance. For years, he's been one of the few rappers willing to say what no one else would. He's the guy who gave us rawness when the game was drowning in polished pop. And now, he's coming back unchained. No label filters. No calls from upstairs. Just him, a mic, and decades of receipts. This new Clipse record isn't just a reunion, it's a statement. It's what happens when a rapper escapes the matrix and comes back with a flamethrower. And industry heads? They're nervous. Because Push has nothing left to lose. And a man like that is the most dangerous kind. But here's a wild thought. What if all of this had never leaked? What if Victor kept quiet? What if Kendrick had held back? We might still be living in a timeline where Drake is the uncontested king, where Pusha's verses stay buried, where fans think hip-hop's gotten soft, not knowing the real reason is because it's been muffled from the inside. And that's the part that hits the hardest. It's not just about beef, it's about erasure. It's about the quiet, subtle disappearance of artists who don't fit the vibe. That's not just Drake's mistake. That's hip-hop's wound. Now we gotta ask ourselves, how many more verses were pulled? How many collaborations never dropped? How many careers were slowed, just enough, to keep Drake comfortable? Because make no mistake, this wasn't about protecting his brand. It was about protecting his throne. And instead of sharpening his sword, he tried to silence every challenger. Which is ironic, because it only made the challengers louder. And as for the fans, we're waking up. We're starting to realize that maybe that fire we missed in recent years wasn't gone. It was hidden behind executive decisions, corporate loyalties, and personal vendettas disguised as strategic rollouts. And what we're seeing now is a wave, a movement. Rappers breaking free, labels losing grip, songs dropping without permission, fans choosing raw over rehearsed. We're entering an era where artists aren't just making music, they're making a stand. And if that's the new normal, then hip-hop's back in good hands. But let's circle back one more time, because we haven't even talked about the money. You know who else loses when artists are censored? Us, the fans. We missed out on a fully formed Pop Smoke vision. We missed a potential Clipse and Ross and Wayne nuclear fusion. We lost years of Pusha at his peak. All because of egos and emails. If that doesn't piss you off as a fan, you might not love the game as much as you think. Because when one man decides what we can and can't hear, we all lose. And now that Drake's pattern is public, good luck putting that genie back in the bottle. This isn't just a bad look. This is a documented unraveling. Every interview from here on will get the same questions. Did Drake block you too? Was your verse pulled? Were you told not to speak? The same fans who screamed God's plan are now asking for God's receipts. And the irony? Drake could have avoided all this. He could have dropped his own responses. He could have gone bar for bar with Push. He could have answered Kendrick on Wax instead of Instagram. But he didn't. He hid behind paperwork. And the culture? It doesn't forgive that. And now, Drake's throne is surrounded by question marks. He's still charting, still streaming, still trending. But the question isn't if he can sell records. The question is, what's the cost? Because behind every polished rollout, behind every major cosign, behind every brand partnership, there's a trail of silenced verses, buried bars, and careers he never had to out-rap, just outmaneuver. That's not a legacy. That's a liability. And artists are finally saying what they couldn't say before. They're connecting the dots, comparing notes, realizing that industry politics wasn't just a vague excuse. It was a protective moat built around one man. But the drawbridge is down now. And guess who's coming across? Pusha, Kendrick, the streets, the culture. The truth? Drake could have gone out like Jay-Z, fought his way through every era, evolved, adapted, rapped his way to legend status. Instead, he tried to gatekeep the genre like it was his private playlist. And now he's being remembered for the beefs he dodged, not the bars he dropped. That's not growth. That's regression. That's not power. That's panic. But here's the good news. Hip-hop always corrects itself. Every time someone tries to tame it, package it, sterilize it, it snaps back with twice the energy. That's what makes it different. That's what makes it culture, not product. And right now, it's snapping back. The Clipse album is proof. Kendrick's dominance is proof. Even the rise of underground and independent artists, who no longer need label permission to drop truth, is proof. The era of the industry bottleneck is breaking open. And the people who were once being silenced, they've got megaphones now. So what happens next? Drake has two choices. He can face the music, literally, and step back into the arena with bars, honesty, and humility. Or he can keep hiding behind label muscle and pretend it's still 2016. But here's the problem with nostalgia. It fades fast. And the new generation? They're not just listening. They're watching. And they know who's ducking. The truth is, this whole saga might go down as the moment Drake finally broke character. When the certified lover boy mask slipped and the insecure executive underneath got exposed. So if you're still here, still watching, this is your moment. Tap like. Smash subscribe. It's free, it's fast, and it tells the algorithm you ride with authenticity, not censorship. You stand with bars, not boardrooms. And you're here for the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it gets. Because this ain't just about Drake. It's about every artist who's ever been told to tone it down. Every rapper who got shelved because they ruffled the wrong feathers. Every verse that died in an email thread before it could spark a revolution. This is about the soul of hip-hop. And for the first time in years, it's back in the right hands. But before you go, here's your teaser. What if I told you Drake wasn't the only one manipulating the game? What if there's a group of label execs, brand partners, and hidden billionaires who've been shaping hip-hop from the shadows for over a decade? And what if their grip is slipping too? Stick around for the next video, because we're pulling back the curtain on a secret industry cabal that's even deeper than Drake's playbook. Let's just say, the puppet strings go way higher than OVO. And next time, we name names.